This is what my place looks like right now. I think people in this class come from all over the world. So some are Northern Hemisphere, some are Southern Hemisphere. For me right now, it is the um, middle, almost the middle. It's more of the beginning of winter. And I'm surrounded by forest, and it has been snowing the last day or two. So this is what my environment looks like right now. So I thought tonight we could just relax a bit and close our eyes and get comfortable and think about whatever season it is in your part of the world, spring or summer, is it autumn, winter, what's going on? And try to invite the sense of that season into your mind and just kind of sit quietly with the season that you're living through and begin to feel with your extra senses what it looks like, what it smells like, what it feels like to be in that season. While we breathe in slowly and deeply and out a few times. Slowly bring ourselves back to where we are sitting.
Oh, ayan.
So, welcome, welcome to all of you. Um, we were meditating on the season that we're living in. For those of you who just entered, I was showing this is what my surround looks like right now, snow covered trees, lovely winter. Um, and it's a good way to start the class tonight. As you know, last week we didn't quite have time to finish up our discussion of traditional ecological knowledge or indigenous ways of knowing. So Christy's going to take us on a little voyage tonight and talk a little bit about why we focus on this to some extent in the program.
Thank you, Kathleen. First of all, I want to go where you are. I'm feeling that cold, but it does not look like that outside my window. Anyway, it's just dark.
You're in
Um,
California. It never
I
gets that
know,
cold
but
in
it's okay.
California.
But in perspective, it is 50 or 45 degrees here. Okay. So yes, thank you, Kathleen. So yes, we ran out of time yesterday. And so before I really speak about Indigenous knowledge and Neohumanist education, I kind of wanted to take you guys to a little bit of a personal space. And we touched on this before, because this topic is really not abstract to me, for me at all. And in especially more relevant times, it's kind of become part of my lived experience. And, we talked about it recently. I lived through the Lahaina wildfires of Maui, in 2023. And, after losing my community and my home, I really had to look at things. I found myself really looking at things differently. And that included the kind of learning, the learning that doesn't come from books, programs, or like that traditional academic environment. And so in Maui or in Hawaii, we refer to things as aina. and it's this connection to the land. And so I really understood that I needed to kind of find that connection to Aina and from the people who have stewarded this land for generations. And that really brought me some deep questions that only could take shape after a community that, for me, it took some like this devastation to happen for me really to get in touch with that. And I found myself really after those first early months asking myself, like, just how would we rebuild? Not just that rebuild back the same, but how would we go forward and retransform? How would we change and do things better? And something that would honor the land, respect the history, and strengthen the community instead of weakening it. And how do you build it in kind of this view of neo-humanism? So through my work in West Maui and through conversations with people, I started to understand to really look at the ancestral knowledge of this place. And I began to understand that indigenous worldviews are not peripheral, that they really truly are essential. And it really carries the pathways for things like healing, resilience, and relationship that I think often in our, in the more the larger worldview is largely forgotten. And for me, that understanding has really shaped every part of my existence and especially of the work I'm doing now. And so when I was able to step back and look at this as an educator and then also now as a student, I realized what I was learning wasn't just recovery work, it was really understanding a new worldview. And I really think indigenous worldviews invite us away into a way of living that understands things like land, water, and the people as one interconnected family, which I think really resonates with neo-humanism. It emphasizes reciprocity, responsibility, humility, and long-term thinking. And it reminds us that our survival depends on healthy relationships with each other and with the natural world. And especially as somebody non-native who has been living in Maui for many years, the perspective really helped me to listen more deeply, to slow down, to walk with greater humility, and to ask myself what it means to be in a right relationship with this place. And honestly, it's really reshaped the way I think about education and kind of the learning environment that I hope to cultivate for children. So I think that brings us into Neo-Him's education, and we talk about things expanding our circle, of love and care, and we ask children and adults to see themselves as part of this much larger living world, and not separate from other beings, but connected to them, and not to be dominant over nature, but be responsible to it. And this is where indigenous knowledge aligns so naturally with neo-humanism. So both perspectives ask us to see all as sacred. Both ask us to honor local cultures, ecosystems, and histories. And both remind us that wisdom is not just intellectual, it's relational and ethical. And really both ask us to shift from an extroversial mindset, one that prioritizes technology, extraction, and productivity, which, that's kind of constantly part of our worldview and our framework in the modern world, and instead to be more balanced, holistic one that values intuition, care, community, and ecological dependence. So, um, and this is the dominant worldview tends to see humans as separate from nature, with nature existing primarily as a resource for us. And knowledge is often framed as something we extract, measure, control. And indigenous worldviews, I was just saying, by contrast, understands that humans are part of nature, not separated from it, not above it. The land is not a commodity, it is its kin. Knowledge is formed through relationship, observation, reciprocity, and responsibility. And this is why indigenous communities, who make up only about 6% of the world's population, really steward over 80% of the remaining biodiversity on Earth And I don't think that's a coincidence. That worldview is translated into practice. And as educators, this reminds us that the worldview we teach, implicitly or explicitly, shapes how young people will relate to the world. It shapes whether we see life as interconnected or extractable. And it shapes whether they approach problems with domination or with humility and creativity. And so, to help illustrate that tonight, Kathleen has this great video, and it's called "Indigenous Worldview Can Preserve Our Existence." And I really think it beautifully captures, everything I just spoke about and what we talked about last week. And so do you need me to share that, Kathleen? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, if you can get ready to show it and put the sound on. This is a video by an old friend of mine named Four Arrows, who's an education scholar. So we've known each other for many years. And this was a little talk that he gave at the end of a United Nations session. So maybe we can make the screen full screen and put the sound
Is
on.
that full screen?
Not quite, no.
This is right. Okay, let me try again. I don't know why it doesn't like me to do this sometimes, but let me try this. How about that?
Um, there we go.
Okay, now let's
Yep.
see if it's gonna
Do we
make
have
sure you get the
sound?
sound. Are you getting sound?
Yes.
Okay.
The earth is suffering. Climate change, pollution, and pandemics are some of the consequences of human-created assaults on our world. According to the United Nations Biodiversity Report, 1 million more species face imminent extinction, including us. We must live on Earth differently, if not for ourselves, for future generations. 80% of global biodiversity now exists on only 20% of the Earth. It is no coincidence that this small amount of land is mostly managed by indigenous cultures. According to 450 multidisciplinary scientists, extinction rates have been less severe or avoided entirely in these areas held by indigenous people. We can all learn to live with greater respect for our non-human life forms. This is possible if we embrace the worldview that has guided us throughout our existence on this planet. In contrast to the dominant worldview, the indigenous one truly emphasizes our relationship to the land, the environment, and all its interconnected inhabitants. Without remembering this oneness with all of life, we are doomed. Regional and global scenarios currently lack explicit considerations of the indigenous worldview. It is also important that we do our best to protect and support the remaining indigenous cultures. They are fighting against all odds to protect the last of Earth's biodiversity. And while doing this, we can all re-embrace the worldview indigenous peoples share. We can come to understand that human relationship with nature is a continuous two-way dialogue, that natural resources are better thought of as relatives and teachers. Gratitude is essential. The universe is constantly in flux. Time is circular. Respect for diversity, equality, and justice is crucial. Spirit is in all things, and that human knowledge must be joined by a fearless trust in the unknowable mysteries of nature. Let us remember who we really are and reestablish our intended way of being with respect, generosity, gratitude, and of course, the happiness that comes from this. Mitakuye Oyasi, we are all related.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's such a powerful video, and oh, hold on, sorry. It was still playing in my background on me. Um, yeah, no, I think it's such a powerful video, and like I said just earlier, just sharing my own personal story, I think it just really reflects like how important I think that we understand that connection with traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous ways of knowing and how powerful it is. And I think it can be used in so many different areas of education and even within our personal spheres of influence. So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that video, Kathleen. I always enjoy watching it, even though
Right,
it's difficult to watch at the same time. So very
right.
powerful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. I want to add just a couple of things. It would be easy to assume that we are what they call romanticizing indigenous culture. There was this idea during the Romantic period, for example, um, in the 18th century or so, that uh, tribal people were by nature pure and innocent because they had never had contact with modern civilization. And there's a lot of problems with that. The first is, of course, that indigenous cultures had their share of brutalities, of war, of gender violence, even human sacrifice. So we're not saying, oh, there's this great purity to all indigenous cultures. Um, the other thing is, it's easy to sort of collapse um, the hundreds of different cultures into a homogeneous kind of worldview. And that's not the case either. Most of my experience, well, virtually all of it, is with Native North Americans. I was married to a Native American fellow, and he's the father of my 4 children. So I spent quite a bit of time with Native culture. And in our schools, we're not taught that there were over 500 sovereign tribal nations here with when the Europeans arrived. 500 languages, 500 cultures, all of them very different. But I think what Four Arrows and what Christy and what we're talking about is there was there was some universality to the worldview, even though they were very different in the details. But she's mentioned them all. The idea of the sacred nature of the earth, the interconnectedness, and the idea of relationship. Um, so those were just a couple of things I wanted to say. The other thing is that of course, when children here are taught about Native Americans, they're usually taught about people wearing feathers and building canoes and living in teepees. But the truth is, indigenous people are modern people. Many live in urban areas. Um, they have, they involved with modern technology. Um, their cultures were destroyed by colonization. So many of them are engaged in efforts to bring back their languages, bring back the ceremonies, bring back the cultures. And as Christy said, they're often on the front line of resistance to the extraction of capitalism and corporations. Um, so those are, I think, just a few points to remember as we talk about indigenous worldviews. We're not trying to collapse the vast diversity of indigenous people into one big idea. Here's an interesting factoid, though, that I came across that I really didn't know about until a couple of years ago. There was a study of over 3,000 medicinal plants. As you know, most of our pharmaceuticals come from plants. Um, and these were linked, the 3,500 medicinal plants were linked to 236 different indigenous languages, most of them which were close to becoming extinct. 75%, that's a lot, 3/4 of the known medicinal plants that we know about, their use is only understood in one language. And that language is and each one in a particular language. So when Sarkar talks about the importance of preserving local culture and language, there's a very pragmatic dimension to that, which is um, the actual knowledge that is stored um, in the languages of people who understand plant medicine. So I thought that was an interesting, kind of presents a self-interested purpose in preserving local language and culture, aside from the moral imperative. So any questions about anything having to do with all this indigenous discussion before we move on? Questions or thoughts? I think we're probably speaking to the choir here. I'm pretty sure most of you have already thought about this quite a bit. So our third topic in this course is aesthetics or the arts. And I think I've shared with you, it's really a favorite of mine. And the questions that we're kind of going to look at this week, and this is only a very short survey of the arts. Later in the program, we go into a lot more depth about the arts. But we will be looking at, why the emphasis on the arts by Sarkar. We'll look at how they can enliven the curriculum and bring joy to the classroom experience. We'll look at how the arts, and there's much more about this in other chapters in the book, how can the arts enhance learning across the curriculum? How do they foster ecological awareness, ethics, and make ordinary experience extraordinary? We'll look at that tonight. And also cultivate social and emotional intelligence. And the last thought, one of the sayings from Sarkar that I always remember is his promotion of art for service and blessedness. And I'm not sure we really know what's meant by that. So I want us to think about that and try to come to some understanding of it. I'm going to do a bit of a mini lecture, last maybe 20 minutes. And then we do have an activity to do toward the end of class to get you all more engaged and talking with each other. But I want to first talk about what art has become in the modern world. It's really taken on a very different function than it has taken for the last millions, thousands and thousands of years. This idea of spectacle, art as a commodity, and art as entertainment. It's really a sort of a product bought and sold in the marketplace. And these giant spectacles, we have rock concerts and we have theater, and interestingly, mega churches now. Churches have become a form of entertainment, with rock music and lights and special effects and film. So it's really become, I think most of art today probably falls into the category of what Sarkar called pseudo culture. And again, that's a term that I don't think we understand terribly well. I sort of understand it as artistic products that are imposed by these mega forces of capitalism and colonialism, and they're they've crisscrossed the globe now. So we have these mass entertainments really in every country. A lot of local and folk culture has been lost because of television, media, movies, films, and spectacles. There's a great French philosopher. He wrote about the nature of a spectacle. And I love this quote by Guy Debord. He says, "The spectacle is the bad dream of a modern society in chains, and it ultimately expresses nothing more than its wish for sleep. The spectacle is the guardian of that sleep." Didi Shreya, can you read it in Portuguese for us?
Yes, O espetáculo é o mau sonho de uma sociedade moderna, acorrentada, e em última instância não expressa nada além de seu desejo de dormir. O espetáculo é o guardião desse sono.
Can anybody take a stab at what they think he meant by that? I know some of you must have some ideas about it. The wish
Well,
for sleep.
yeah, I can do.
Nirmal?
Yep.
Okay.
There's not enough there's very little idealism, or no, I shouldn't say. There's quite a lot of, I don't know, it's a tricky thing to say. There's lots of examples of art that talking about different societal problems, but they rather do not really give much insight. They kind of provide repeated ideas, but there's not enough radical, you can say, spiritualism in this idea of self-liberation. Like probably the best example that comes to my mind literally is Matrix, probably. It's like very powerful, but very paradoxical and almost unthought of about right now. Like it's difficult to imagine that a quality Matrix would come right now at this time because this I don't know, like it's everything is quite commercial these days. But I mean, mainstream culture is always like that because people have to live, and some people will make art for a living. And of course, the art that makes living is more digestible, and it's more about the basics, the human basics, and some, you can say, extraordinary films or stories are usually rebellious to start with, so they do not bring in the revenue, and you have to be like very, very ultra. mm, can say ultra mainstream. So you risk really to be alone. You risk alienation and reprimand from the society, and to do that really calls for courage. And yeah, mostly the films that we see right now, they're comfortable to watch. They follow a very strict thing. Like I did minor in art history and in cinema studies, and we saw such films that right now I would not even be trained to do. What we see in Netflix and other films like things like that, they're very easy to watch because they follow the same pattern. They don't ask the like most of them. They don't ask like really like question status quo because they have to play it safe because it's a very expensive art and people try to survive and make revenue. So to really follow this logic of intuition, of sacrifice, to do something like really out of the box requires you to risk everything. And we know, I guess, there aren't so many people. I mean, like largely to have this psychology of sacrifice and blessedness, only minute number of people will be able to do that. Like in literature, Don Quixote was such an example, for example, but everybody considered him to be a mad person, and arguably he is mad. And it merits that these people will be mad, but then they will be really the game changers. Anyhow, this is just some thoughts.
Well, while I was listening to um, you speak, Namal, I just suddenly had this metaphor come in my mind. And it's like, and the reason it comes to me because in working with children, in Waldorf, we do a lot of movement and things with children. But sometimes because they have so much media in their lives, then it actually, the movement causes them to kind of almost regurgitate the media they're taking in. They take this stuff into their body, which is like not good nutrition. And then when they are doing something healthy like movement, they regurgitate. They act it out. And the way this makes me think of a lot of the art and pseudo culture is like food that we take in that's not good for us, that is poor nutrition, and the diet as well as the uh, um, routine over which we take it um, leads to a situation where we go to sleep then we actually turn this stuff into these bad dreams. We actually turn, so when we see a spectacle, it is I think the externalization of this process that we are kind of needing to do with all of this poisonous stuff we take into our bodies. Like in the water circle, the children take all this poisonous stuff into their bodies, and then they get this healthy process. And what do they do in the healthy process? They can't engage because they regurgitate all the poisons. And I think that in a way, the spectacles, the artistic spectacles, are regurgitation of the poison, or they are what happens in sleep when you have bad food on your stomach and you have bad dreams and nightmares. So I really feel this connection between what happens for children when they take in all of this media stuff, and then when they are engaged in healthy processes, how they sort of vomit it up. And I think pseudoculture in general, I think that there are artistic mechanisms in our culture that we use as a way of handling this regurgitating experience of all of our pseudoculture.
Thank you, Japa. Uh, Didi, you have your hand raised?
Yes. It's all really about money, isn't it? Because these spectacles make a lot of money and they're not like really art, because art will touch the higher layers of the mind. It's kind of like kind of reminds me of ultra processed food, that it becomes kind of addictive, so people keep eating it and eating it, and now it's like destroyed the health of many, many people. So I think that this kind of art is not really art. It's kind of like ultra processed food.
Interesting way. Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, Didi. Didi Shreya?
I think that what when we sleep, actually, what are we awaking from? And I think it is these illusions of, when we say about these illusions of Maya, we are thinking of all these desires that supposedly would give us happiness, but we know that they don't give. And this illusionment is this awakening. I will not have happiness from this stuff. And I think this kind of art, they show us the contrary. They show us that we can have happiness in romantic love, in money, in all of this stuff, like keeping us in this dream and making it very gloomy and shining. And I go to these casinos here in Peru, and there is a lot of spectacles, and all that to maintain you how to say, alejado, ay Dios mío, to keep you distant from this truth that is very hard for us to be face to face, that we will not find happiness in this stuff, and all of this that is they are trying to give us, this ultra processed food that Didi told, and Japa also, because it's hard to see the truth, and good art will show us and will shock us. And I think Kafka says that like a good book has to be a hammer in this iced lake. It's a little bit destroying our illusions, not giving us more illusion.
Thank you, Didi. Rebecca?
Yeah, just my thought on that quote and kind of how I reflect that quote in today's society, right? I feel like this sparkle or spectacle is, kind of a representation of our current, even shallow society, of today, very superficial, focus on the spectacle versus the essence or the value behind that spectacle, right? I think we are in a very troubling times where spectacle is what actually are now predominantly in people's mind, in our children's minds, and in their psyche, and again, what they ingest right now as far as knowledge, not wisdom, but they think this is information, and it's a very destructive information that, like Japa also said, that it gets material, gets materialized. Um, children eventually act them out, or it manifests these things in various ways, and in today's society, we even adults, our greater society is consuming these sparkles or spectacle. We judge people by their looks, by the stuff that they have, by the many likes that they have on their social media, their followers, versus the value, the content, the or what they actually spread. So there's a lot of again, shallowness in today's, if we are to put it in even visually, even in what we see. And it's there's a compounding effect, obviously, because the next generation will act it out. What we are consuming today, it's gonna gets built up within everyone's system, physically, mentally, spiritually, and it will come out. It will manifest itself in again in various ways, and that's the challenge of today. How do we compete against these, even to a point where there's algorithm behind it,
Yeah, exactly.
right? That
Yeah.
that makes it more apt, basically holds people, grabs people, and traps people to continually consume and pervasively by these influences, for, as
Yeah.
Didi says, all to towards profitability, towards materialism.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in here. Before my internet goes out again, I've never had trouble like this in a class, but I keep leaving, and I want to talk before I run out again a little bit about the alternative to this, which is really something that we have gotten from John Dewey, which is, instead of the art as a spectator sport, it's the idea of art as experience. And this is where our pedagogy comes in. Dewey promoted this idea that, the everyday things of life, we can make make them special. And there's another, just ordinary experience is repetitive, and it's routine, and it's habit, and it's sameness, and it's day-to-day stuff. But an experience is something very special, and that's what the making of art can do. So it's a very special kind of experience, whether it's a drama or an art form. Christy, can you hear me okay? I'm doing okay for now.
And
Okay.
great, yes.
I just want to promote this one idea. There's some reading about it that you can do, but this idea of how to make ordinary experience extraordinary. This is a really important idea in neo-humanist art. And this theory of art and evolution. Art has been with humans since the beginning of time, really. And every single culture, the Celtic cultures with their circle dances, the Maori culture with its particular form of ritual, the Hopi corn dances, the three young women in black skirts. I have to show you, these are my Norwegian granddaughters who dress in their traditional costumes a few times a year for their cultural experiences. But every culture has used the arts in special ways. And many of them don't even have the word art in their culture. It's just that music, dance, song, decoration, costume, jewelry, piercings, all these are infused in the lives of people. And they're participatory, they're not spectator sports. So humans originated the arts in ritual and ceremony. And this is an important point for us to think about because it shows us how we can link the arts to transcendent or spiritual experiences. So rituals have formed many functions. They observe important life processes. And we have birthing rituals and funeral rituals and marriage rituals. Rituals reinscribe social values. Many of you from Brazil with the idea of carnival, you know, and the inversion of social orders. There's all sorts of ways that the social values are enhanced through rituals. Importantly for us is this idea of the way that ritual can confirm our interdependence with the natural world. So seasonal celebrations, in Native American culture in the North America, we have gift exchanges and powwows with dancing and sharing and spreading the bounty around. And the other important thing for neo-humanist education, as we try to think about how do we inculcate the moral values of this new interconnection and ecological self, it can be done through rituals. And there's more, of course. In India, I know when I've been in India, I've been astounded at the numbers of parades and processions that happen there. And of course, there's healing rituals, and many indigenous people have shamanic rituals or rituals of healing and health. And of course, we have the rites of passage. These are important, whether it's a birthday or a vision quest where a youth goes out into the forest by themselves and waits for a vision or a dream that will shape their future. There's more, of course, but all of ritual had the purpose of making ordinary experiences special. And there's a reason for this. And I learned about it through the study of evolutionary theory and the arts. Rituals have the capacity, and it's because they integrate music, language, visual art, movement, drama, costume. All these things are integrated in a ritual, and the result is transformative or transcendent emotional states, extraordinary states of consciousness. So feelings of connection, of bliss, of harmony, of the social networks. So that's from the evolutionary perspective, but psychology also the psychologists have studied ritual a lot. And they suggest that these kind of choreographed events can produce emotionally laden experiences that create feelings of unity and sacredness that bonds us together with other people and with the natural world. So, because these pre-modern rituals reinforce many of the postmodern sensibilities in neo-humanism, I took about 2 years to study ritual and to really try to come to grips with how could we integrate the elements of ritual into the classroom or the community, not in a religious sense, not in a dogmatic way or a way of passing down a particular religion, but as a way of generating really deep learning about various topics. So I gave you a reading that you can take a look at. It's actually sounds rather complex, but it's not at all. It's just a way of thinking about what we do in education that can promote these feelings of connection and spiritual experience. So I have this idea, I call it cultures of enactment. And I've written quite a bit about this. It's ways of involving young people in these artistic, communal experiences, whether it's drama or, movement, singing, in which they recreate the fundamental stories of our existence. So all of these ideas we're trying to get across about our relationships with plants and animals, and the morality of how we are to live in the world. How can we transmit that through these enactments or experiences? And one thing that's at the heart of this for me is I'm really a proudist, and I believe that we need to move in the direction of sustainability, of degrowth, and decommodification. We need to live differently. So we need to help young people understand a lifestyle that doesn't depend on consumerism and commercialism. All of you talk very elegantly about the role of art and movies and films and how they are often promoting an unsustainable lifestyle. So there's lots of ways to decommodify. There's service, there's care, there's play, there's sports, but the arts will play a central role in making the ordinary extraordinary. Dini, would you read that paragraph in Portuguese in case I didn't get it across?
E além disso, se quisermos avançar na direção de uma sociedade ecologicamente sustentável, de decrescimento e da descomodificação, Prout, precisamos ajudar os jovens a compreender e apreciar modos de vida que não dependem do consumismo e do comercialismo. Embora existam muitos exemplos de atividades descomodificadas, serviço, cuidado, brincadeira, esporte, etc., as artes desempenharão papel central em tornar o ordinário extraordinário.
Thank you. Did that make sense, Didi? Is the translation all right?
Sim, só a parte de descomodificação seria de commodity de mercadoria, né? De tudo não se transformar em produto, em mercadoria, né? Então seria bom fazer isso não acontecer.
So to boil it down to a visual image with artificial intelligence is very good at this now. Here's my theory of arts integration for neo-humanist education. Put the integration of the arts in the center, and that means bringing different forms together, whether it's music and singing or movement and drumming, or drama and story. But to begin to think of art as experience and how children make meaning of the world, to really, and if you kind of go counterclockwise, it's in Portuguese on the right here, the idea of making special as a universal human activity. And if you think about how every culture has ways of making things special, whether it's how they decorate with food at special events or different things like that. And importantly, I want us to think about the arts as a bridge to this ecological and ethical consciousness. And we're going to, think about that through this idea of enactment. So enactment is a word that'll come up a lot. And it has to do with one of my curriculum models, which I suggest. Most of the way we think about curriculum in neo-humanism is sort of project-based. It's kind of deep learning that incorporates many disciplines. So maybe a study, for example, of the season, and that could go on for a period of weeks where students would study from a scientific point of view, maybe through storytelling, through movement, all the ways that the minds can begin to understand a particular topic, like the season. So at the end of these curriculum units, when you study more about curriculum design, there'll be this idea of a culminating activity, which is like a big project that pulls together everything that's been learned and synthesizes the knowledge and skills that children acquire. And one of the culminating activities, I think, if we can think very creatively about these, it could be a drama, or it could be it could be all sorts of things. But if we think about the relationship between ritual and the culminating activity, we will think about ways to demonstrate knowledge that are not merely academic, but that also have emotional, social, and spiritual sensibility as a container. Is that making any sense to people? Raise your hands if it does. I hope so. And it is 8 o'clock now. I'm not sure how we're doing for time, Christy. I got so discombobulated with all the internet troubles. But wanted to spend some time in groups. It looks like we have quite a bit of time to do that.
Yeah, we do,
Um,
because you kind of had a light night.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think we will have time for that.
So we will have some group conversations now. I just want you to sort of jump into this with both feet and to think about a multi-arts activity. Think about maybe a curriculum topic like the seasons, or like climate change, or like I don't know, anything really. And think about how you might culminate that in some sort of what we call an enactment, a ceremony, or a ritual, or a festival. And begin to think about how you could infuse the learning with a neo-humanist sense of ethics, or morality, or ecological citizenship. And if you then come up with a great kind of activity like that, then think about, what do children need to know and be able to do in order to pull this off? For example, if you did a drama, children would need to they would need to study storytelling. They might need to study mural making, or set design, or making costumes, or all sorts of things children might need to learn before they could do something like this. So that's what I had planned for tonight, is these breakout groups. And I noticed Wilder is here. Wilder, welcome. Was a little crazy because my internet went out about 5 times tonight. And oops. But I think we have a good 20 or 25 minutes to do this. So between Christy and Wilder, they will break you up into groups. I think we have the languages sorted out at this point. If you should be in a language group where you understand what people are saying. And I think we have 2 translators here tonight. I think Didi Shreya is able to translate. And Bruno, you're here. You can translate, right? Yes. So I think we can have fairly small groups, maybe 3 people in a group.
And how much time, Kathleen, do
I
you think?
think it's 8 o'clock.
Yep.
8 o'clock. I'd say at least 25 minutes would be
Okay.
fine, but also to raise other questions about the arts. And we'll come back together as a whole group and
Okay.
talk about what you're thinking about.
And Wilder, where are you? Is Wilder?
Yes, I'm here.
Do you want me to set him up, or do you want to set him up? Have you already started?
I did begin.
Okay.
I guess I have one question. If let's see, we have.
Sharada's raising her hand here.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I think Stefania need to stay with other Brazilian because I don't know if she speaks English, but I think she needs just that.
So Stefania and Sharada in the
Hi,
same group.
do you speak English? So okay, sorry.
Yes, I speak English. Can be everywhere.
Okay, so
I think almost everybody tonight speaks some English. So
Yeah,
most of the
everybody.
Brazilians are in tomorrow morning's class.
All right. So
So
Wilder's let me know how I can support you.
Christy, maybe you can put this task in the chat for them.
I can do that.
Find a multi-arts activity.
Okay.
Okay, I think I have the groups are ready for us. And yeah.
Go for it.
I think everyone's back. Do we, I think we have a little bit of time to do a little bit of share. Okay, perfect. Let's start out with room one. If you, we have Bruno, Deity, Shreya, and Sharada. Would one of you guys be willing to share a little bit what you guys talked about?
Sharada, can you share?
okay, I can share. We talk about a typical Brazilian party that we celebrated I don't know como é que fala colheita, gente. I think it can.
Harvest.
Não aprendi.
Harvest?
I think Didi Shreya can speak in English better than me.
I don't think so. These words are hard to say.
Yeah, some words skip off our mind.
Okay, but let's go together. You help me, I help you.
Okay.
So we thought about doing this ritual of harvest. We have this typical Brazilian festival that occurs in June, but there are some different elements that we want to incorporate. So it's about harvest, and there is a lot very centered also in corn, in this corn culture. And so we thought about creating music. Well, the children can create music depending on the age, or the teachers also, to this ritual around the fire, this big, how to say fogueira, Bhaskar or Sharada, fire, you know, this, I don't remember.
Fire
Bonfire.
day, wood and fire. I don't know.
This, and then theater, and talking about the story of the corn and all this stuff, and all the elements are there, and also this a little bit of folklore to be like a link between generations gathering. So old people, new people, they all share these folklore stories. And also this food that we all love from corn. So And yes, Bhaskar also talked about using in this kind of teaching about how to plant. We use like superheroes like fairies and other superheroes from local culture that will teach how to do the harvest and stuff, and of course the ritual of harvesting itself, and also cooking. So they learn to cook some things, and they will also cook, and they will create the music, and we will need and making also craft of these balloon from air and fire that we also do here. Is not very ecological, but we don't need to so this is also very nice, and they love it. And we have to learn some things before, like healthy food and respect for animals that guarantee the survival of these plants, and teaching how to plant and how to cook and this craft. And yes, I think Sharada and Bhaskar can
Yeah,
add.
we talk a little about the dancing because usually we celebrate dancing, and the dresses and the clothes are so beautiful and typical. So everybody needs to make the clothes together, and some ancestral could help because our grandmothers, everybody knows how is this party, so we can dancing together and make the clothes together. So this is art too. The I don't know, enfeites, como é que fala enfeite, Cid?
Decoration?
Yeah, the decoration of the party, the kids can do together, all decoration. And one beautiful thing that we can show how the plants grow. So we can put the child in the earth and feel the earth and put the seed and see the seed growing up. And when the seed is big and become a plant, we can dancing because of that and celebrate of that. So it's a party that I love here in Brazil, that we can teach how to eat vegetables and don't hurt animals. So it's so Neohumanist party too, I think. So we talk about that.
Thank you.
I
Fantastic.
like the way they incorporate intergenerational knowledge there with the costumes and the
Yes.
grandmothers, and
Very
that's
well. Yeah.
wonderful.
Beautiful. Very, very thought out. Thank you very much. I really.
Brazil must be the perfect culture for doing this sort of thing because there's so much joy in the arts, it seems like.
Yes. All right.
So and
Oh, yes,
so much
please.
happy. People are so happy and like to
Yeah.
hug, to kiss, to dance. Everybody
Beautiful.
have problems, no money, but everybody's happy.
Oh, that's great. All right. Room two, we had Joppa, Stephania Wilder, and I think, I don't know, Didi, if you were able to join or not, but Didi Murkavata was there. Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody from that room would like to share.
So I'm going to share, but Stefania, who's from Brazil, is also a jujitsu teacher. And so she talked about how she actually uses drawing sometimes to help, illustrate the techniques and what that are there. And she also talked about how they talk sometimes, about the ethical and moral, contexts for utilizing the art. And so then we just start brainstorming on, what all we could bring to that artistically. Um, I sometimes it's kind of difficult to see where you can move off into the artistic element. So one thing I've done, and which I suggest that people can do, is sometimes you can come up with metaphors from nature, analogies to what you're doing. Like I also teach a martial art called Xingyi, which already has the five elements as a representation of the forms. And then once you have those five elements, you can associate those five elements with different arts. And like for instance, she talked about the conversations they had. Those conversations could become theaters, enactments of the different principles, you know, that you're doing. we talked about other things that could be brought to it, like music and whatnot. And even those weren't readily available. Wilder mentioned that you can appeal to other people in the community, to bring in some of the other artistic aspects that may not be there, to incorporate those into a culminating sort of a graduation. Like their graduation could include enactments or theater work around the different moral principles and ethics they've learned in the course of the techniques. There can be some presentations of the drawings that they're doing, the study techniques, and then there's the movement itself, which is already an art. Even though it's martial, it's also can be contemplative and artistic form. So there seem to be a lot of possibilities. And it just so happens that I've actually done this with Xing Yi. And so I put a link in the chat to actually, I do a summer workshop that's a conflict resolution workshop. And I use the Xing Yi to teach about 5 different ways you can learn to resolve conflict better. And the children write poetry, they do painting, they do sculpture. So it was interesting that, she was a martial art and was looking at jujitsu, and I had already done some work around this myself. So in terms of graduation as a ceremony, there are many theater and drawing immediately, but I think you can incorporate poetry too because children can express what they're learning about the ethical and moral imperatives and responsibilities that come with learning the art. So definitely drawing, poetry, and theater could be incorporated in a presentation around martial arts graduation culminating project.
Thank you,
Joppa,
Jeff.
I don't see that link in the
It
chat.
says Pythagoras.com meditation contemplative movement. It's in the chat. Does anybody else see it?
Uh-uh.
Well, it's there.
There it is.
I see
There
it,
it is
yeah.
from Wilder. Yeah.
Yeah, mine was up ahead and Wilder just put it in again and probably moved up too far. But if you go to that link and then you scroll down, you'll see I have this whole description of how I use the 5 element movements to teach conflict resolution and use the arts to do that.
I'm a real big fan of having martial arts in school. I studied Aikido, and there's so much spiritual knowledge in some of the martial arts. Obviously, not all of them. Some of them are just,
Right.
fighting. But some of the more subtle ones are, I can just imagine how kids would just love it in schools if we had more of that.
And one thing I could mention too is that in terms of the indigenous element, the 5 elements, even though they're coming out of a Chinese martial art, I decided to take the 5 elements from the Yoruba tradition. And so I took what those 5 elements meant and that's how I developed my sense of the art that we do. I took the 5 elements and looked at how the Yoruba looked at those and got the wisdom from the Yoruba traditions to really understand how to express it artistically. So I brought in, that indigenous knowledge too. And of course, it's called Camp Africa. Man, it's called Camp Africa. So I had to it has to have African theme there. So I integrated those things. But
Very
yeah,
cool.
it's a rich area for bringing different arts to help the children work through the lessons, not only the techniques, but also the moral responsibility that comes with studying martial arts.
And certainly the 5 elements are very much a part of Sarkar's writing about Tantra.
Right.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Joppa. I thank all of you for that. And finally, room 3, we had Kathleen, Nirmal, and Rebecca.
Rebecca, do you want to go ahead and express?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We started a discussion initially introduced this idea of, as an activity for kids and perhaps adults, of a collective vision board of what a new humanist world could look like for them as a kid, right? We often vision board may come, I mean, as children, we often write or put stuff, on our wall, imagining what the things that we want to become, we want to do, we want to have. But this idea of creating a collective vision board kind of came to, during the discussion, kind of how would kids create, visually, whether it's through their drawing or maybe creating poems or stories or phrases, imagine themselves in the future in a neo-humanist world, right? Where the foundation of neo-humanism, but that's just a simple idea that we are deeply connected to ourselves, to our community, to the animals, to our plants and earth, and imagining the world that we hope to belong in the future. So obviously each kid, each individual or have a different perspective of what that world could look like. But and it'll be interesting to see what that world could look like in their point of view, because one of the discussion point during a session was like, we as adults, we're somehow perhaps are influenced by our today's world. We're heavily influenced by the knowledge that we and the learnings that we have kind of grew up in, and just an idea of what the kids would think, what would be their vision of the future world where they feel that they belong. Because I feel like children today, they wonder, and they even have anxiety of kind of trying to understand how they will belong in the future. Not only who they are, who they could be, or it's what the future is like. And many are afraid or scared of thinking about the future because of all these negative things that they hear. So the idea is that how do we create that positive kind of imagination or vision of what the world could look like? And I picked vision board because the connectivity, we all do certain things, but we don't come back to those things. The vision board is something that you keep, right? That you put somewhere where, as you kind of, as you progress, or as you, as years come, you can always go back to that vision board and see and think about, what you imagine it, or how you imagined it before. And vision board it's not a static thing. It's something that you can always kind of recreate or redevelop or enhance. And I think creating this kind of, as far as our discussion as an activity, a collective activity, is a great way of really bringing out what that world could look like. And I think it could be a positive one, especially if it's rooted in the neo-humanistic values and foundations. So that's just basically how we started, our discussion, and what activities can we, create around that. And that led us to, obviously, discussion about, the importance, like visions. Every child can dream. Doesn't matter where you are. Doesn't matter if you're poor or you're rich. Everyone dreams, and it's like a seed, right? We have this very valuable seed, but the question is, the challenge for others and for most is, where does this seed grow if it doesn't have the fertile soil, the right environment, allow this seed, this vision to grow? And obviously that in our world today, we see the disparity of people that can actually act upon their dreams. people don't get their dreams not just because they don't have a dream or they can't dream enough or they're, but it's the challenge, it's things that holds them back. So the question is, as educators, how can we not only envision what the world a neo-humanist world could be, but also how can we create this environment? How do we create this fertile soil for this little young seeds to grow and become ultimately what they're meant to be? So we talked about that.
Thank you.
It's like a robust conversation. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's amazing in 25 minutes in small groups how creative these projects are already, like culminating projects we're already developing. It's just, yeah,
Great.
it's wonderful to hear. So thank you, everyone, for sharing and really leaning in on this today.
I think you'll have a lot of fun with the arts later in this program. You start to see the ways that they can infuse everything. We are about to close here, but I want to talk a little bit about the final project. I've read some of the proposals and they're really fascinating. So what we've decided is, well, get those final project proposals turned in as soon as you can. And you will perhaps remember that we're giving you a few extra days after the last class to turn it in by December 21st. And let's see. I guess I don't have the readings up there. One thing I think you'll be happy to hear is that I have posted a couple of readings for this week. One is the chapter on arts-based learning, which sort of reviews a little bit what we talked about tonight, but elaborates a lot and goes into much more detail about the role of the arts in neo-humanist education. So we posted a couple of readings, but you'll be happy to know there's no writing assignment this week. And the reason for that is this is week 4. We want to give you a week to sort of catch your breath and catch up. If there's pieces of work that you haven't turned in yet, hopefully this will give you the chance to really get everything sort of turned in and get credit for it. And also to start work on your final project. If you've turned in a proposal, you should get your feedback very soon. I've responded to my students that I'm reading for by now. I've responded to all of you, and hopefully the rest of you have gotten responses as well. So one more thing, Christy and I were thinking a lot about, in the last class, the 6th class, usually people present like their final project or something, but some of these will just be research or papers, or writings, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense, I think, to share it in a presentation, although you could have the choice to do that if you want. Some people are creating artistic projects. Some people are, I think Wilder is planning to do a short film. Things like that could definitely be shared on the last class. But we're very interested in seeing what kind of projects you are working on now. Are you, or what kind of neo-humanist projects are in your community? Many of our students in this cohort have schools or they're working in schools. And we would just like to see maybe some photographs of your school or what you're doing or what your kids are doing, and just give either an individual or a pair or even a small group just time to talk about a neo-humanist project in their local area. Christy, do you want to add something to that?
No, I think one thing it's really I think it's inspiring and it's really relevant if, to see what people are doing. And so like what, Kathleen said, I mean, if you have a project that you feel like you want to share from the final project, it's great. But I really do think it's great when we can, I mean, come together and share the work we're doing. I think there's such a value to that, and it's something we learn from it, and like I said, it's definitely inspiring and really relevant because I think it kind of connects things a lot too for all of us that we're all kind of working towards one large goal.
So that's what we're thinking. Anybody have any questions before we close or comments about any thoughts about the arts or
You did
what we
get some
talked about
thumbs up
tonight?
about the no assignment. Did you notice that, Kathleen?
I didn't.
Yeah, Dee Dee Shreya sent up a hooray, a little party thing, and you saw in the chat, Stefania is yeah, thanks, she wrote. So
Well, I really think that people need this time to get caught up. Not everybody has all of their work turned in, and we would love to see everyone finish by the end of this class. So there's nothing hanging over the holidays. So take your time, get started on your project. Do the reading if you can. I'd like to hear what you think about the reading in the arts, but there's no requirement. Other thoughts, questions, perspectives? Did you think in any new ways about the arts tonight at all, or was this just kind of all very familiar already?
Can I say something?
of course.
Sarada.
In the first slide, was saying something about going to sleep in the end of the sentence. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that came to my mind, I don't know if I'm saying something silly. Sorry, you can tell me. But the first thing I thought is the real art is for who? Because I thought that the person who working all day is so tired that cannot pay for the real art or cannot watch the real art because they are so tired. I thought something about the system and what this person can do. Just is something that is not so good because they are tired for asking more or for fight for more or for pay for more. Could you understand me? So
I think so.
I was thinking something about that because people who are working so much and passing for so much difficult things in their life and don't have money enough, it's so difficult to have fun, to have art. So I stay thinking about that, but I don't know how to put my hand like Shreya, so I stay quiet.
I think a lot about that because I mean, I was a practicing artist for many of years before I became an academic, but I've known so many musicians and painters and poets who cannot make a living at their art. Unless you get famous. If you get famous, then you make a lot of money as an artist. But just your everyday practice of art, like you said, people are so busy working and trying to survive that they don't have time to do the kind of art. I think that's what I heard you saying. Dita Shreya, what did you hear?
No, I just would like to say that this thing of making art like an experience should, in theory, okay, we already get it, but it's not, we should make it radical because I think in my experiences, everybody can create something if they are focused on that. And creating art should be something like very natural for everybody, and we should teach that in school. I know this is one certain I have in life. Everybody is an artist of
Yeah.
something. So we have just to stimulate ourselves and everybody to do art collectively. Like you are going to a meeting every weekend for what? For to create art. I don't know, to create kirtan, to create music, and just do this like a normal thing because it is normal thing, but we are not used to it.
I love what Sharada said about in Brazil, no one has any money, but everyone's having fun. Japa, did your hand go up?
Yeah, no, one of the things I am one of those people who is artistically challenged for sure. But as a Waldorf teacher, you have to strive. And the most important thing is the striving in front of in front of the students. The students, when we had to do chalkboard drawings, and you probably saw Waldorf chalkboard drawings, they can be beautiful. Mine were never quite beautiful, but I strived. The children could see the effort. They could see, and as a year, and since we stay with the children, as the years go, you improve a little bit, and the children see your improvement, and they get better than you. But it's like it's that striving. We have to teach the children to sing. We have to play the flute. I remember when I was in training and they were trying to teach me to learn how to play the flute, I could never play with people, so I would be just faking it in training, but I could always learn the song and then lead the children. So you just got to be used to striving in these areas of the arts, you know, and recognize that the children benefit from seeing you strive, not being perfect, not being
Right.
perfect.
Well said.
Japa, I can really relate to that. I was a dancer as a child, and my mother used to say, "It's really good you can dance because you sure can't sing." So I grew up thinking I was a terrible singer and I never sang. And then I started teaching preschool, and I realized that the kids didn't care if I could carry a tune. As long as I was singing, they were happy, and they were singing too. So
Yeah,
I think that's great advice, Japa, is just to get in there and do it, even if you don't feel like you're talented or
Absolutely.
special.
And I loved what Dee Dee Treya brought forward, that everybody is creative, everybody's an artist. And I think you were music to Kathleen's ears, because that's somebody that really brought that to my attention when I met her several years ago, was to embrace that. And I've never looked back. So you're in good space, Dee Dee Treya. All right, I think that,
Wilder, are you going to make a short film for your final project?
Um, I don't know if I can. Maybe eventually, I may be not as ambitious, but maybe a series of
A
shorts.
piece of
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
we look
Great.
forward
I'm
to
sure.
whatever you compose, Wilder.
Okay.
Right.
Quite,
Yeah.
quite talented. So appreciate that.
Okay. Well, enjoy your week of no writing assignment.
Yeah. And as always, please reach out if you have any questions or anything. Yeah. So,
Great.
yeah.
I apologize for my internet tonight. That has never, ever happened before. Terrible. All right.
No problem.
Namaskar,
Thank you.
everyone.
Namaskar. Okay.
Namaskar.
There's Stefania.
Kathleen, I'll see you in the morning.
I need to learn about how to do all these hearts. I love them.
It's under reactions.
Have a great time tonight,
Okay.
Christy.
I'll see you in the morning.
Bye bye.
Bye.